All right, guys. So for chapter 12-7, okay, I'm going to do another example for you, okay? My next example for chapter 12-7, okay, is going to be y equals, let's do something like -5 sine 4 theta, okay? So looking at this equation, couple of things you have to identify first, okay? So first, we have what's called the amplitude, okay? We have to find what's called the amplitude. Amplitude, all right? Amplitude is going to be the absolute value of -5. It's going to be always the absolute value of the number you see in front. So in our case, my amplitude, I'm going to abbreviate that as amp, equals absolute value -5 is 5. Okay, that's the height that the graph is going to rise and fall when I'm graphing. Okay, next, called the period. The period of the wave is always going to be 2 pi divided by b. And period, b is the number you see in front of theta right there. So 2 pi divided by 4, go ahead and reduce that, right? 2 pi divided by 4 is pi over 2, okay? Pi over 2, or 90 degrees, okay? So that's important for us to know. Amplitude right there, period right there. And another piece of information that we have to have that's very important for us is called the increment. Okay, increment is very important. So what we do is we take 90 and we divide by 4. So our case, increment is going to be 22.5 degrees. This is important because it's going to tell us how much to add each time to get nice, beautiful points. Okay, so now let's start our graph. So y equals -5 sine 4 theta. Okay, so I'm going to make a graph like this. I'm going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Amplitude is 5. That tells me how much my graph is going to rise up. That's the distance from the middle up to a maximum, okay, of 5. Okay. My minimum, again, I'm going to go down 5. 3, 4, 5. So right here, this is called the minimum that I'm dashing in here. So this height is called the minimum. And this height is also 5, but we're going down, so -5. Okay, minimum, -5. Maximum, 5. So my graph ideally is going to start rising up 5, down 5, up 5, down 5, okay? I just have to plug in correct numbers, okay? So now, let's plug in 0 first. My equation, I'm going to plug in 0 degrees. So y equals -5 sine 4 times the angle 0 degrees. Y equals -5 sine 0. Okay? Okay, so sine of 0, again, you should know it using flashcards and such. You should memorize that. Okay, if you don't, then you got to use a calculator. -5 sine of 0 is 0. So y equals 0. So now we have a point of 0 degrees, a height of 0. So my first number is going to be the angle. My second number is the height. Okay, so I'm going to go over here in my graph, 0 degrees. My height is 0 right there. Make a dot. Okay, all right, so next. I started using 0 degrees earlier, so now I have to add what's called the increment, 22.5. This is called the increment. We found that earlier. increment. Increment helps me identify what to add each time to get nice, beautiful points. So when I do that, I get 22.5. So here we go. We're going to plug in 22.5. So y equals -5 sine parentheses 4 times 22.5 degrees. So y equals -5 sine, okay, 4 times 22.5 is going to give us nice, perfect numbers, 90. Okay, so when you increment it right, when you increment correctly, you're going to get nice, beautiful angles to work with. That's why it's so important that you find the increment. So -5 sine of 90 is 1. Again, you should know this. Okay, flashcards, calculator. So y equals -5. So I used the angle 22.5 degrees and my height was -5. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to graph that right there. Okay, I'm just going to move over space. This angle is 22.5 degrees. And again, my height is -5. So I'm going to go down 5 units, make a dot. Okay, so if I just connect those two like this, okay, there you go. All right, but I need some more points. Ideally, I would love to have like 5 points. Okay, minimum 6 points, 7. All right, 8, 9. I need at least 5. Okay, the more I have, the better. So 22.5 degrees was what I used last. Now I gotta add the increment again, 22.5, 45 degrees. Y equals -5 sine parentheses 4 times 45 degrees. So y equals -5 sine 4 times 45 is 180. So again, you need to know sine of 180, calculator or flashcards. Sine 180 is 0. So y equals -5 times 0, 0. So I use 45 degrees, right? And I got a height of 0. So again, I'm going to make the graph here. I'm going to slide over a little bit right here. Okay, this is 45 degrees. Okay, and I had a height of 0. So here's my point. Again, I'm going to connect the dots like this. Okay, so far I have 1, 2, 3 points. 1, 2, 3 points. I would love to have, at least 5, but the more the better. Okay, so we're going to continue until we get around 5. Okay, so my last point I used was 45 degrees. I'm going to add the increment 22.5. That gives me 67.5 degrees. This doesn't look like a nice angle, but when you plug it into the equation, it does. So y equals -5 sine 4 times this number here, this angle of 67.5 degrees. That doesn't look too good, right? 67.5 degrees doesn't look like a great angle. But when you plug it in and you multiply by 4, you get y equals -5 sine 4 times 67.5 is 270 degrees. And good thing is it comes out perfect, right? So we get -5 sine of 270, flashcards, calculator, is -1. So y equals 5. So I used 67.5 degrees and I had a height of 5. So that's giving me my next point, okay? My next point is going to be right about here. This is about 67.5 degrees and my height is 5 right here, okay? So when I connect the dots, I get this, okay? So if you look at the graph of what we have so far, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. Okay, I need at least 5, then it'll start repeating itself. Okay, so if you look at the graph right now, it's not a complete graph yet. I started in the middle, I went down, up, and went up. I haven't gone down yet, so right here would be my next point. Okay, then I'll be done. All right, so let's continue. 67.5 degrees was my last point I used. I have to add the increment 22.5. and I get 90. So now I'm going to plug 90 in. So y equals negative 5 sine 4 times 90. So y equals negative 5 sine 360. Okay? Again, sine of 360 is reducible, right? 360 is the same place, a coterminal with 0 degrees. So negative 5 sine 360 is same thing as sine of 0. We know sine of 0. We also know sine of 360 does the same thing. So y equals negative 5. Sine of 0 is 0. So we get y equals 0. So I plugged in 90 degrees and I got a height of 0. Okay? So that is going to be my new point, my next point, okay? My fifth point. This right here would be 90 degrees and my height is 0 right there. So now if I connect the dots, look what happens. I started over there on the left, going downwards, coming back up, going up, and coming back down. So see this middle point, number 5 and number 1 are the same point. It's repeating. The graph is now complete. Now, if you look at it, I stopped at 90 degrees. I started at 0 degrees. So it took me from 0 to 90 to finish this wave. This wave was done in 90 degrees, from 0 to 90. And if you look at it, that's what the period was. The period, if you remember, based on my original calculations, was 90 degrees. And the period tells you, hey, this is how long it will take for you to complete a wave. Okay? In terms of degrees, the time frame is 90 degrees. From 0 degrees, I went downwards, come back up, and come back down. By the time I got to this point, it took me 90 degrees and it's going to start repeating itself. Okay, so hopefully you're able to do that. Try a couple problems on your own, see how you do. Good luck.